aneurysm in the back of your brain that's pretty large. And to get your blood pressure down so they can perform the surgery. So be strong.
Some stars of a popular auction show took a break, Achille, and never returned to your screens. What really happened to them?
The Storage Wars curse might just be real. When Storage Wars premiered on A&E Network in 2010, it turned everyday storage auction hunters into overnight celebrities. But fame came with a darker side. Over the years, 3 people connected to the franchise have died, while several others survived terrifying emergencies that nearly killed them.
My dad 6 months ago was diagnosed with lung cancer. He's been smoking for 30 years. And last night, he passed away in his sleep peacefully from complications.
In 2019 alone, 3 original cast members landed in the ICU within months of each other, and fans began whispering about a curse. So, what was really happening behind the scenes? Join us as we uncover the Storage Wars cast members who suffered the most shocking fates. Number 10. Mark Balelo. Mark Balelo's death was tragic and unexpected. When he first appeared on Storage Wars in the show's 2nd season in 2011, the response was immediate. He arrived at auctions dressed for an occasion that the other bidders had not been informed about, wearing silk shirts and carrying what he ironically called his merce. He brought more than $50,000 in cash to each auction, which was not a strategy so much as a statement. He bid like someone who had done the math in his head before the locker opened and was not particularly interested in what anyone else thought the math came out to. The other bidders called him Rico Suave. Brandy Passante coined the nickname on camera, and it stuck. He did not seem to mind. In 2011, he helped reunite Nicolas Cage with a rare 1938 Action Comics issue, the first Superman appearance that had been stolen from Cage's Los Angeles home, a transaction that illustrated the precise combination of expertise and network that made Balelo genuinely unusual in the storage auction world. He was being positioned, by the time his final episodes aired, as the show's new primary antagonist, the man who would step into the role that Dave Hester's legal battles had vacated. Unfortunately, things turned sour. On February 9, 2013, Balelo was arrested on suspicion of possessing methamphetamine and being under the influence of a controlled substance. It was not his first encounter with drug-related charges. He had served time between 2007 and 2009. His first court appearance following the February 2013 arrest was scheduled for February 19th. After his release from jail, he spent the evening of February 10th at his auction house in Simi Valley, talking to his fiancée, Elizabeth Metsidis, for hours. He told her he might hurt himself. She described the conversation later. He felt better after they talked. He took a nap. When he woke up, he seemed calmer, and she left. The following morning, one of his employees arrived at Balelo Inc. and found him unresponsive in a car in the garage with the engine running. He was 40 years old. The Ventura County Medical Examiner ruled his death a suicide by asphyxiation due to carbon monoxide and exhaust fumes. A&E said they were deeply saddened by the tragedy. His last episode aired 2 months after his death. So what happened to the show's auctioneer, the face of the franchise, when a similar crisis struck the man behind the microphone? Number 9. Dan Dodson. Dan Dodson is the auctioneer. Not one of the auctioneers, not the most famous of several. The auctioneer, the specific voice that Storage Wars built its entire sonic identity around. The rapid-fire cadence that became the show's heartbeat from the first episode through every season that followed. He and his wife, Laura, who ran American Auctioneers together, were the center of the show. They opened the lockers, ran the bids, and collected the money. Without Dan Dodson doing what Dan Dodson does, there is no Storage Wars. However, being amazing didn't shield him from tragic situations. On a morning in June 2014, Dodson woke up in their Palm Springs home, asking questions that did not make sense. Laura described it to reporters. He was muttering strange things in his sleep and woke up confused. He complained of double vision and went to take a shower to clear his head. Outside the shower, he collapsed and immediately stopped breathing. Laura called 911 and was instructed to administer CPR on the floor of their bathroom while the ambulance was in transit. He was rushed to Desert Regional Medical Center in Palm Springs, where doctors discovered he had not one brain aneurysm, but two, one behind his eye and a second in his neck that Laura described as the size of an apricot. His neurologist told reporters that it was a miracle Dodson had arrived at the hospital without significant bleeding. Laura's immediate call to 911 was credited directly with saving his life. His initial survival odds were given as 4 to 20%. He underwent 8 hours of emergency brain surgery. When he came out of it, the damage was not as extensive as the doctors had feared. He was released from the hospital within weeks and was back in front of cameras filming Season 6 of Storage Wars by July 10th, just weeks after surgery, a timeline his doctors had not predicted, and that reflected something in Dodson's character that the show's audience had always seen without understanding how deep it ran. He told reporters afterward that surviving a double brain aneurysm had changed the way he thought about everything. He also revealed that he had decided to quit smoking, which he had done for 40 years, because the smoking and the high blood pressure were the specific combination that had nearly killed him. Fortunately, he lived to learn from his mistakes. Let's move on to the next cast member and what challenges they faced. Number 7. Dave Hester. Dave Hester was the villain. Not reluctantly or accidentally, but deliberately and with a degree of professional commitment that suggested he understood exactly what function he was serving and had made his peace with it. His catchphrase, the elongated "you-up," that he bellowed at every auction and had trademarked and printed on merchandise, was designed to irritate, and it did. His habit of bidding up lockers he had no intention of buying just to cost his competitors money was not illegal, but was not especially sporting either. He filed a lawsuit against A&E in 2012, alleging the show was rigged, got fired in response, spent 2 years in legal combat with the network, settled in 2014, and came back. The audience booed him and watched him anyway. He was, in the specific way that television requires, exactly what the show needed. In November 2018, Hester woke up in the middle of the night, unable to breathe and feeling sick. His girlfriend drove him to a hospital in Newport Beach, California, where doctors ran tests and discovered he had severe undiagnosed sleep apnea. His breathing was stopping more than 100 times per hour while he slept. The combination of chronic oxygen deprivation and high blood pressure had triggered a hemorrhagic stroke. The potential long-term effects include permanent brain damage, coma, and death. Hester spent days in the ICU. He was then transferred to a live-in rehabilitation facility for a month. He then spent weeks learning to walk again. He learned to shower, to perform the most basic functions that the stroke had stripped from him. He told TMZ he had believed he was going to die. He returned to Storage Wars, appearing periodically in later seasons without the full-time presence that had defined the earlier years. He launched his own auctioneering business. The you-up did not stop, but the man saying it had been somewhere that changed him, and the audience could occasionally see that it had. And the crisis that hit him had barely finished before the next one arrived 3 months later from a different direction entirely. Another cast member whose presence also defined the show suffered a similar fate. What happened to him? Number 6. Daryl Sheets. Daryl Sheets was known on Storage Wars as the gambler because his bidding strategy appeared to be based on instinct and nerve rather than the calculated assessments that Hester and Balelo brought to every auction. He would bid on lockers that frightened other buyers, absorb losses that would have driven someone else out of the game, and occasionally pull something extraordinary out of a unit that had looked, from the door, like nothing at all. He had been in the storage auction business for decades before the cameras arrived. He brought his son Brandon in as his sidekick, and the two of them operating together became one of the show's more reliable sources of warmth. In March 2019, Sheets was at a Justin Timberlake concert in Los Angeles when he began experiencing symptoms he had been experiencing, in milder form, for 3 months. He had been feeling ill. He had been ignoring it the way men who have spent their lives gambling tend to ignore signs that the odds have shifted. He was hospitalized directly from the venue. Fans were shocked when he revealed what was wrong. He had congestive heart failure. He had a severe lung infection. And the artery that had triggered the cardiac event was 95% blocked, a configuration that cardiologists refer to informally as the widowmaker, because the expected outcome of that level of blockage, absent immediate intervention, is death. 2 stents were placed. He underwent surgery, survived, and was back at auctions within months. He eventually returned to Storage Wars for subsequent seasons, though by season 16, he was no longer listed among the active cast. He opened a business called Show Me Your Junk in Lake Havasu City, Arizona, in 2023. He is alive. The Widowmaker did not close the bet. While Daryl's illness slowly crept up on him, Barry Weiss' incident was swift and immediate. Let's find out what happened to him. Number 5. Barry Weiss. Barry Weiss did not appear on Storage Wars to make money or for fame. He is a millionaire who made enough money in the produce industry, a large-scale produce distribution business in Los Angeles. However, Barry also had a part of him that he didn't hide from the world. He loved antiques. He was so in love with collecting that he spent his retirement attending storage auctions and using whatever he found to add to a collection of motorcycles, cars, and ephemera that was already one of the more remarkable private accumulations in Southern California. He bought a carved coffin once. He found a vintage slot machine. He found things that made the other buyers look confused. He was the reason people watched, even when the lockers were empty. Unfortunately, his wealth did not shield him from tragic incidents. On April 24, 2019, roughly 6 weeks after Daryl Sheets was taken from the Justin Timberlake concert to the hospital, Weiss was riding his motorcycle in the Los Feliz neighborhood of Los Angeles with a friend when a car pulled out of a parking space directly into their path. Both riders went down. Weiss was transported to the ICU at a local hospital with severe chest and leg trauma, broken bones, and internal injuries. He underwent multiple surgeries on his back and femur. He spent 2 months in the hospital. There were reports during his hospitalization of a stroke during recovery, though this was never officially confirmed. He was absent from television for nearly 2 years. He returned to Storage Wars for a brief run in season 14 in 2021, arriving on set in a 1939 Lincoln Zephyr and asking the camera, "Did you miss me?" He appeared again in season 15. He was not part of season 16, which aired in 2025, and neither A&E nor Weiss has publicly explained the absence. 3 original cast members had been hospitalized within 6 months in 2019. The audience had begun to notice a pattern. Unfortunately, that wasn't the end of the tragic events that plagued the casts of Storage Wars. Number 4. Moe Prigoff. Morris Michael Prigoff was born on May 18, 1942 in Syracuse, New York. He attended Syracuse University before heading to the Ohio College of Podiatric Medicine in Cleveland, where he earned his medical degree. He spent 45 years as a podiatric surgeon in Oak Cliff and North Dallas, Texas, building a practice whose patients remembered him for wonderful care and a fun-loving spirit. He was a member of the Texas Podiatric Medical Association, a fellow of the American College of Foot and Ankle Surgeons, and a diplomate of the American Board of Podiatric Ankle and Foot Surgeons. He was also, in his spare hours, a collector of contemporary furniture and antiques who had been buying and selling classic pieces all over Dallas for nearly a decade before he opened River Regency Modern, a boutique antique store specializing in mid-century modern furniture and art that became his second professional identity. He joined the cast of Storage Wars Texas in 2011 in the show's first season and was nicknamed The Doc. He wore stylish clothes. His footwear was extremely loud. He had a quick wit and a high energy level that made the cutthroat world of storage auctions feel, whenever he was in it, like a party he had organized. His on-screen partnership with Mary Padian became one of the spin-off's most reliable sources of comedy and warmth. He was still running his podiatric practice while filming, which meant that every auction scene he shot was squeezed between surgeries, consultations, and the administrative weight of a 45-year medical career. He described both as complementary. He described himself as someone who had found two things he was genuinely good at and saw no reason to choose between them. Moe Prigoff died on March 4, 2021, after a 6-year illness that his obituary did not specify. His wife of 19 years, Michaela, whom he called his wife for life, cared for him throughout those 6 years. He was 78 years old. He is survived by his daughter, Gina Leonard, his son-in-law, Paul, his grandsons, Gavin and Zachary, and his 2 sisters. Storage Wars. Texas had gone off the air in 2014, 7 years before his death, and many of the show's fans who had loved him did not learn he was gone until months later. Let's move on to the next name on the list. Number 3. Gunter Nezhoda. Gunter Nezhoda was not originally part of Storage Wars. He arrived on the show through his son, Renee, who had joined the cast in Season 4 alongside his wife, Casey, as the Bargain Hunters, running their thrift store in Poway, California. Starting in Season 8, Renee began bringing his father along on locker runs, and the audience responded to Gunter with the particular warmth they reserve for people who are clearly just happy to be there. He was not trying to be a television personality. He was a retired Austrian-born man who had moved from Germany to Las Vegas in 1990, had worked as a photographer, had acting credits, and had spent years playing bass for artists including Pat Travers, Leslie West, Michael Schenker, George Lynch, and Kevin Dubrow. He was, in other words, exactly the kind of person who has led the kind of life that makes for compelling television without being designed for it. Renee Nezhoda announced his father's death on Instagram on March 22, 2023. He recorded the video several times before he could get through it. He said his father had been diagnosed with lung cancer 6 months earlier. He said Gunter had smoked for 30 years. He said the doctors had done what they could and then reached the point where there was nothing more to do. He said he had all kinds of holes in his lungs. And then he said he was one of the guys on Storage Wars that never really got any hate. People just loved being around him, including the crew, including everybody. Even Dave Hester, Renee noted, couldn't help liking him. He said their mother had died before Gunter, and he hoped his father was up there with her somewhere, dancing again. And then he said, "No more pain." Gunter Nezhoda was 67 years old. Number 2. Daryl's son Brandon. Brandon Sheets had grown up in the auction world the way children of people in particular trades grow up with that trade as their primary landscape. His father was the gambler. Brandon was his sidekick, then his partner, then his own person with his own developing eye for what a locker might be worth before the door fully opened. He was the generational continuation of everything Daryl had built, and their dynamic on screen was one of the show's more honest portraits of a father and son trying to figure out how much the son should listen and how much the father should let go. In 2024, Brandon Sheets was involved in a serious truck accident that left him with significant injuries. The family kept the details of the accident, including its precise circumstances and the full extent of the damage, largely private. What made it to the public record was that it was serious, that Brandon survived it, and that Daryl's response on social media was the response of a father who had come close enough to losing his son that the proximity had shaken him in a way that the storage auction world and everything that came with it had not. Brandon is alive. Now, let's move on to the last name on the list. Number 1, Garrett Dodson. In 2020, Dan and Laura Dotson's son, Garrett, was shot during a confrontation in Lake Havasu City, Arizona. A local man named Garrett Wilder had approached him in the neighborhood, and the situation escalated to gunfire. Garrett Dodson survived. The shooting was covered briefly by entertainment press and then receded from public attention in the way that things involving children of reality television personalities tend to when the outcome, though terrifying, is ultimately survival rather than death. Dan and Laura addressed it publicly and then moved forward as they had after the double brain aneurysm, with the specific forward momentum of people who have decided that the alternative is not acceptable. Which of the cast's experiences shocked you the most? Share your thoughts with us in the comment section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.